So by now, most of you have heard that, of course, Disney is doing their own streaming service, Disney Plus, and it's going to be huge. You know, from $100 million Star Wars series, The Mandalorian, to Scarlet Witch and the Vision, to multiple other things that are in development, including The Falcon and Winter Soldier, which apparently is getting some people upset of the rumors and what the Russo brothers have said. So naturally, if you look at the MCU, I think when you think Winter Soldier and the Falcon, the definitive versions have been handled by the Russo brothers, right? Specifically in the Winter Soldier, you know, that was their first real step into the MCU, and they nailed the characters' feels. And when you go to Civil War and everything else, they just seem to understand the characters. So when the series was announced, a lot of people just assumed that the Russo brothers would be behind it, right? It's like a no-brainer. Put these guys on it and let them do it. And recently they said they're not involved at all and they don't know what the status of it is, which has caused some outrage. Now, you guys also have to understand that these dudes are rather busy. You know, like, they have their own production studio they're working on. They have their own TV series they're working on. They're still in the MCU. But at, like, the same time, they probably want to evolve their own craft and develop their own properties, which would mean if you stick more with Disney, you're kind of in that wheelhouse, right? You're kind of just going to get to, okay, I'm doing the same thing over and over. I need to do something else. You kind of get bored, right? So naturally, people start to get upset that they're not involved. But at the same time, you have to think of how the MCU has moved forward. When the Russo brothers were announced to do Winter Soldier, it was literally deemed to be the end of the MCU because they're comedy directors. And then there's Civil War and Winter Soldier, and there's Infinity War, and now Endgame, right? They've clearly shown that they understand how to handle situations and characters. When they took over for Joss Whedon, people were literally freaking out because it's like nobody else besides Joss can do this. But clearly they topped what he did, right? At the same time, Kenneth Branagh, he handled Thor 1. And most of you know, he's like in my top 5 directors of like all time. I didn't think anybody could do better. But I was like, okay, I'll wait and see, and then here it is, right? So naturally, you have to go out there and look for people with unique takes and fresh ideas and like fresh blood to inject into your franchise. And if they're doing Winter Soldier and Falcon, why not give somebody a chance that you want to use that's small time and build them up like they did the Russo brothers? I mean, look at Watts, for example. He was hired for Spider-Man, and nobody knew who he was. He came off like one movie at a festival. The people were like, who is this guy? You know, but look at him now. So you kind of have to understand that you can't just hire what's safe. Sometimes you have to look outside the box and maybe hire someone that's a little bit different, because that's really what kind of pushes you to the next level. Best example I can give you, James Gunn for Guardians. When he was announced, the internet freaked out because it was like, this guy is terrible. He can't possibly do this. He just makes cheap, terrible-looking horror films that nobody likes. They're like cult films, right? And then here comes James Gunn and redefines what the MCU is. So, who's to say they're not going to find the next James Gunn, or Peyton Reed, or Joss, or really anybody, because that's really what they do, right? Find someone, give them a chance, push them out there. So, we should probably hold off on hating on this till we know more.